more Midwest Outer Realm followers.
Michael Schrader, Exorcist.
API, Anoka Paranormal Investigations.
Supernatural Investigators of Minnesota, SIM.
Twin Cities Paranormal Society, TCPS.
Freak, friends researching entities and knowing spirits.
Things Like Go Bump, Minnesota.
MPRS, Minneapolis Paranormal Research Society.
MPF, Midwest Paranormal Files.
Minnesota Paranormal Coalition, unity in the paranormal community.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to MPC Radio Show, Minnesota Paranormal Coalition, where unity in the paranormal community is alive and well in Minnesota. My name is Jerry Ayers, and I'm with SIM, Supernatural Investigators of Minnesota, also the co-founder of the MPC, again, the Minnesota Paranormal Coalition. Co-hosting for me tonight, or with me tonight, is David Andres. He's taking place of Will Ventling, who's probably sitting around playing Candy Crush again on his phone. And David, are you with us?
I am, Jay. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on, Dave. It's been a while since, as a matter of fact, you were on one show with us, weren't you?
Probably so it was. It was a while back. It's been a long time since I've been on the air. A long time.
Gotcha. How does it feel? Feel good?
It feels good to be back. This is going to be fun. You know, we've got a great guest tonight. You know?
Oh, we certainly do. This is a person that I've been wanting to meet and wanting to talk with for years and years. And Dave, can you do the introduction, please?
I'm proud to call Uncle. His real name is Thunder Before the Storm. He's more commonly known as Clyde Bellecourt. Uncle, are you there?
I'm here.
How are you doing today, Mr. Bellecourt?
Well, first of all, I want to say, bonjour, Nigan, way we done. It is because of Sishak Dode and Anishinaabe, Okichida, Three Fires Society, gathering the Circuit Park Sundance, American Indian Movement. My real name, my spirit name given to me by the Creator, is Nigan, the way we done, which simply means the thunder before the storm. And of course, I like that a lot better than Clyde. But when I was born 77 years ago, we as Native people were forbidden to have our own names, forbidden to speak our language, forbidden to practice the ceremonies of our people that went for millions of years, and forbidden to speak in any way about our Indian culture, language. It was totally wiped out in the educational systems of both the public and vocational school systems of America. And in the 1890s, this way of life was outlawed, and we were forbidden from that day forth to speak our language. And that was, by the way, enforced by the church. You know, they established boarding schools all over America and kidnapped my father and my mother and sent them hundreds, thousands of miles away from home and put them in places like Carlisle and Pennsylvania and other boarding schools, and held her sometimes for 9 solid years, like my mother, and was punished every time she got caught speaking Indian. And when I talk about Indian people and my mother, I'm talking about every Indian mother, grandmother, and grandfather, uncle, and aunt throughout America. So it affected every one of us. Every one of our parents went through that system where we were stripped of our language, our culture, and traditional way of life. I belong to the Crane clan of the great Anishinaabe nation, and I was actually made a chief in 1973 when I came home from Wounded Knee in South Dakota. My people honored me through the Bearheart family and old man Jack Musquatty. He had a ceremony called the making of a chief, And they were, in order to be a chief, you had to be a chief and accept an eagle feather. You couldn't even touch that eagle feather unless you had an Indian name. And so a young man was sent out into the woods, and he was to fast for 4 solid days. And sometime during those 4 days, the Creator would come to him, and he would show him a vision. And that vision would turn out to be my name. And he said on the 3rd night of his fast, he saw the sheet lightning coming from the west. And as it approached him, now he's sleeping now, he's dreaming. As it gets closer and closer, you could see the trees blowing back and forth every time that sheet lightning would strike. And all of a sudden there was a bolt of lightning and thunder, and he woke up and he looked, and sure enough, the trees were blowing back and forth, and it started to drizzle. Packed up his gear and came back to the camp, and the following day, and I went to a purification ceremony in the sweat lodge, and he told me that my name from that day forth would be Nigan the way we done, or the thunder before the storm. That's how beautiful it was for our people at one time. Their names came through their clan system and through ceremony and through dreams and visions. So I'm honored to be on the show here tonight. I'm honored to be able to talk to the public and all the listeners out there, and I'm sure maybe later on in the program they might even have some questions. And so I just want to say that much. I'm a member of the Great Anishinaabe Nation. My people are called the Mississippi Band of the Great Anishinaabe Nation. I'm from an area called the Western Anishinaabe Nation in northern Minnesota. I'm one of 12 children. I have 7 sisters and 4 other brothers. And that's the way I grew up. And 44 years ago, we found out that what the conditions of Indian people were. And if we didn't stand up on our treaty rights and stand up for what we believed in at one time, we would sure perish as a people. And so we formed a little organization called the Concerned Indian American Coalition. And of course, once we formulated our organization, we had to change the name, because Concerned Indian American is the acronym there is CIA. And so we changed it, and there was elderly women, 3 elderly women came to us. They were from Red Lake, and they said, why don't you change your name to AIM? And I said, AIM, what does that mean? She said, well, you're aiming to do something about education. You're aiming to do something about the racism. You're aiming to do something about police brutality. You're aiming to do something about unemployment. And she started talking about all the conditions that we were forced to live under. You're aiming to do something about bringing back your culture and I said, well, what does it mean? And she says, American Indian Movement. Oh, I said, but we don't want to be called Indians anymore, because some pirate was 18,000 miles off his course, floundering in the high seas, thought he landed in some other part of the world, and started calling us Indians. We don't want to use that. And this old lady grabbed me by the sleeve of my shoulder, and she said, listen here, Sonny. She says, Indians is what they use to oppress us, and Indian is what we use to gain our freedom. I said, okay. And we went to the board meeting that night, and they proposed the name American Indian Movement, and that's who we've been ever since.
Wow! And now you were the founder of it. You're the co-founder of the.
I'm one of the chief organizers. I'm one of the co-founders. There were several people, but the names that stood out the most were people like Dennis Banks and George Mitchell, Harold Goodsky, Annette Oshie, Florence Holmes, some of the Strong family from up in Red Lake and different reservations that were living in the urban area are also co-founders. But we had a regular election. We had to get up and speak and talk about what we would do to create change. And I got up and I talked about, of course, all the racism and the police brutality, and I said we have to do something about what's happening to our people. You could walk down Franklin Avenue in the dead cold of winter during a rainstorm and see Indian people handcuffed to light poles and meters, sitting in the cold, rain and snow, waiting for the paddy wagon to come back and pick them up. And so one of the very first things that we did was establish the AIM Patrol. I mean, it's not like the one today, you know, a couple of people driving around the car with tags on the door. We had hundreds of people that came out that caught on. They loved what we were doing. They knew how important it was. And not just Indian people. We had church leaders and congressional people. And national TV stations came into town. We put a stop to that kind of brutality against our people. And people saw that we really meant business. We were really out there to help our people. And it was just an explosion overnight. Chapters started springing up all over the country.
Right. I do remember when I first moved to the cities here. I'm originally from Bemidji, Minnesota, and when I first moved to the city, I was shocked by some of the things that I heard, you know, and actually had seen going through downtown Minneapolis, and it was a shame. I mean, northern Minnesota, you never seen. I never seen anything like that before, so I was quite shocked about that.
Yeah, well, you know, we make up less than 1% of the population here in the state of Minnesota. But if you go to back then, if you went to the Minneapolis Workhouse or St. Cloud, Stillwater, Red Wing, places like that, some places the population could get as high as 40% Indian. And so we knew something was wrong. We knew that Indian people were the ones that were targeting, and the racial profiling goes back a long ways with us. We didn't dare walk down the street after dark, you know, and some squad car would pull up and they would grab you and throw you in a car. And if you're lucky, they would just take you down to jail. But sometimes if you sparred off a little bit, they would take you down by the river and beat you up and leave you later. And those are the conditions. I grew up in here, and those were the conditions that I was committed to change. And we have done that, you know. A lot of times when you hear about the American Indian movement, you hear about Wounded Knee and a BIA takeover and demonstrations outside a ball station, marching on the police department, Indian people being put in the trunk of a car and driven around town for 45 minutes. You don't hear about our job training, you know. We have one of the top job training programs in America. It's located right on Cedar Avenue in Franklin, up on a hill. We have another branch up in Bemidji that serves 3 reservations. And we have, over the last 38 years, we have taken something like 40,000 people right off from welfare rolls and put them on payrolls. You know, we've created one of the top job training programs in America. We have a legal rights center that's actually served over 280,000 people here in the state of Minnesota, you know, in the city of Minneapolis and the reservations here in the state of Minnesota. And Judge Michael Davis, who is the head federal judge of the whole district, he's a black judge. He worked for me for 7 years. I'm actually the founder of the Legal Rights Center. I still serve on the board today. Me and my wife are the only remaining founding members. All the other people have passed away. And we have served over 280,000 people there. Judge Michael Davis is a very dear friend of mine, and someday you might want to put him on a show and interview him. He'll tell you, you know, what conditions were and how we joined together with the black community and made that change. Keith Ellison is another young man that came and worked for me for 7 solid years at the Legal Rights Center. And if you ask Congressman Keith Ellison how he got his start, he'll talk about the American Indian movement. He came out of a law firm here in town and joined the Legal Rights Center, and that's where he got all of his training and ended up being a congressman. And there are several judges uptown, Pamela Alexander and others that are judges uptown today and here in Hennepin County and Ramsey County that went through our Legal Rights Center. We developed the first alternative education programs anywhere in the nation. And, you know, we teach them the ABCs. You know, every one of our students have computers in their hands, but they learn the real history, the real truth of how we lost everything, what type of government we had, what type of contributions that we made to modern-day society. So with the introduction of language and culture into the curriculum, we were graduating. You can call the Minneapolis School Board. You can call the Minneapolis Superintendent and ask her for statistical information, and she'll tell you that we graduate more seniors from Hard Years Survival School than the whole Minneapolis public school system, as far as Indians are concerned. We run two of the major health clinics in America, one in the Indian Health Board, and now the Native American Community Clinic, another new one that I was one of the co-founders of. We have our own dental clinic with a partnership with the University of Minnesota. We serve over 45,000 people here over the past 8.5, 9 years. Little Earth United Tribes is the only urban housing program in America, located right on 24th and Cedar Avenue, 218 units, all the way from 5-bedroom townhouses down to efficiency apartments. The American Movement had advocated that. The American Movement is one that had it built. The American Movement that fought housing and urban development in Washington, D.C. for 9 solid years when they brought the light rail through there. They wanted to get rid of the Indian community. They didn't want people to look out their window and see a bunch of Indian people living there. And we fought successfully and had Little Earth turned over to us. They spent over like $65,000 per unit to fix the whole place up. You go there today and drive through on Cedar Avenue, you see nothing but black wrought iron fences, cedar trees and cedar bushes. But you'll also see the Great Wall of China, where they block off the light rail so nobody can see Indians when they come in from the airport or going to a Viking game or a Twin game or downtown the Target Center. Some of you would think the Indian people are invisible. They put the highest, and you can look at or compare it to any wall in Minnesota, any wall in Minneapolis. It blocks off the total view of Little Earth. That's okay with us, for us. You know, we like that kind of security, you know, and we like that privacy and all that. But just shows that even today they try to block Indian people out from the view from anyone. But we're here to stay. We've made a tremendous imprint, and we have helped hundreds. We have affected everybody, every Native person, family here in the state of Minnesota have been affected one way or the other by the American Indian movement. And who would ever think that we'd ended up, after Wounded Knee trials, when we found out that the federal courts weren't going to abide by our treaties, we launched the hunting and fishing rights. And we won that case, if you remember. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court upheld our right to hunt and fish. In fact, we could take 50% of all the allowable catch, but we would never do that. Say they took a million walleyes out of Lake Mille Lacs, we could take 50% of them if we wanted to. That's what the decision was. But we would never do that. We're not that type of people. We're not greedy people. The reason why I'm saying this, when we knew the courts would list out, then we formulated, by the elders told us to formulate a treaty council called the International Indian Treaty Council. That's our political arm. We fought for 30 solid years. It only took us 3 years to get non-government organization status within the United Nations, but we fought 30 years to get the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People of the World passed. The Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People of the whole world, not just us. People down in the Congo, up in Siberia, the Sami up in Norway. There's indigenous people all over Guatemala, El Salvador, Central South America, Mexico. And finally, in September of 2007, the United Nations in New York, they passed the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People of the World. That's the American Indian movement. We now represent over 350 million people worldwide. That's what this little organization that formed on Franklin Island to do something about police brutality is today, and who we are and the type of people we have served. We have made an imprint all over the Western Hemisphere.
Good job. Good job. I mean, if anybody has ever met Thunder here, you're an incredible person. When we sat down to talk on Sunday, I could just see that in the way you talk to people, the way you look around, the way you everything, that you just got the natural in it, and they picked the right person to take control of all that, and you got my respect 100%. Well,
thank you. You know, I've been to the United Nations myself on 3 separate occasions, And since the International Indian Treaty Council was passed by the United States, by the way, the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand were the only 4 countries that didn't sign the declaration. But Australia has now signed it, and New Zealand signed it. Canada signed it, I think, 3 years ago, and finally, the United States, Obama finally signed it. And the reason why they didn't sign it was something like about 70% of all the indigenous people in the world live in those 4 countries. And every one of them are losing their resources. All the gold is being stolen, the oil and uranium and the timber and the water. 90% of all the fresh water left in this part of the country is in this northern watershed. And today, what are we drinking? You know, I remember just 30 years ago, the only water we had here was Glenwood Springs. Now we got about 100 different kinds of water here. And an old man told us, a spiritual leader told us here several years ago when OPEC was going to cut off the oil, and everybody was worried, oh, we're going to be paying $5 for a gallon of gasoline and, you know, $4 or $5 for a quart of oil. And this old man kind of chuckled about that. He said the most powerful medicine in the world is water that flows through the rivers, streams, and creeks of Mother Earth. She takes care of that for us. He said there's going to come a day, he told us. He's no longer here. He passed away. He said there's going to come a day when you're going to be paying more for a pint of water than you do for a gallon of gasoline. And everybody kind of chuckled, you know, land of the sky, blue water, 10,000 lakes, Mississippi River starts on my reservation. Here we are today. We got 100 different kinds of water, Canadian, clear, flavored, vitamin, everything enhanced with metals and iron and everything that we're drinking, every kind of flavor you can think of. So everything that old man told us 35 years ago is now happening today. So there's a wealth of information that environmentalists and people like that should know about, because the Indian people were the caretakers of Mother Earth, and they took good care of her. They never took more than what they needed, and everything they did take had to be shared among everyone. And when Columbus landed here in 1492, he said he came upon a people that'll give you anything that you want. He said they have no prison and jails. They have no need for a Bible. They don't know how to cuss and swear. In fact, he said if you ask them, if you're cold and you ask them for a shirt they're wearing, they'll take the shirt right off their own back and give it to you. And then he told the kings and the queens over there that they're perfect for exploitation. That's exactly what he said. And then the conquistadors landed here, and they started exploiting the earth and the people here. They estimate today there's over 100 million Indian people erased from the face of the earth because they were willing to share. And when they weren't willing to share anymore, they started cutting off the fingers and hands and putting bounties on them. That's where the word redskin comes from. It comes from the scalps taken from Indian people. That's how far back that name that the Washington team uses goes back to when they take that scalp and collect their bounty, the blood would run down those people's face and their body, and then they start calling them Redskins. That's where the Washington team name comes from.
Oh, that's always been a big one from many years back. I mean, how many years have you been fighting for it for all that to change?
Well, we've been dealing with this for 45 years, but so far there's been over 2,000 teams. Every team here in the state of Minnesota, except Monoman up there on my reservation, and Red Lake Warriors, they're allowed to use that team because they're Indian people.
Right.
You know, they're the only ones that didn't. But every single team here in the state of Minnesota had to change their name. You see, it's not the name; it's the behavior that it creates. When a team starts losing, you know, no matter who they're playing, if the Redskins are in town playing the Vikings, and the Vikings are, you know, already had their tailgate party and they're half shot anyway, and I'm sitting in there with a bunch of my grandchildren trying to watch the game and enjoy it, and all of a sudden they get a little bit behind. They start hollering, "Scalp them effing Vikings! Scalp them! Massacre them!" You know, and my kids right away, my grandchildren grab me, "Oh, Grandpa, let's go home. Let's get out of here." They get scared. has a tremendous psychological effect, and I stand up to that kind of racist and ignorant. And you know what? About 90% of the fans up in the area support the Indian people, and they stand up too. And then pretty soon here comes the security, and every single time it ends up they have to take those people out of there. You know, so that's why we take on that issue. It's very important to us. They would never think about calling the New Orleans Saints, you know, and have a mascot dressed up like the Pope, for instance. All right? Every time there's a touchdown made, everybody get up and wave a crucifix up and down.
Gotcha. Hold on 1 second there, Clyde. We got a little problem going here with some static. There we go. Are you there, Clyde?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if that's my computer. Can't be mine. Hold on 1 second here. Let's get this fixed.
Whether you're listening at home, at work, or anywhere, thanks for making Para X part of your day. Your source for everything paranormal, Para X.
Red, where are you going?
I'm going back to the Paranormal View, back where I belong.
Please take me with you.
No, I'm through with everything here. I want to see if there's something left in life I haven't explored. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, Red, don't run to them. They talk about ghosts and hauntings, UFOs, and all kind of supernatural scary stuff.
You'll never understand, will you, Scarlet?
No.
Well, that's your misfortune.
Red, if you go, where shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear... Line...
Oh, you gotta be kidding.
That's the Paranormal View with your host, Henry Foister, Jeffrey Gould, Kat Cloco, and Barbara Duncan. Every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the Para X Radio Network. You're listening to Para X.
There, I know we've got a ton of people listening from Jamaica and all sorts of places. So, wow, that was very interesting. So, Thunder, when we were last talking, I need to ask you a question now. Other than, I mean, everybody can see now that, I mean, just from what I said, from listening to you and everything, you know, the type of person you are, that you are not afraid to take on, to be out there to help the American, the Native Americans, you know, get what they deserve, and to try to fight this racism and bigotry. But one of the things too that you are known for is that you are a sun dancer, and you brought it back. You were the first one to bring it back since the early 1900s, correct?
Well, they just tried to put a stop to it and started in 1890 with the massacre at Wounded Knee. They went across all the reservation, confiscated all the drums and all the sacred ornaments, the feathers, medicine bundles, and what they didn't burn up, they put in museums. And when the American movement formed, of course, we told them that we wanted all those sacred items back. And we led a struggle for that. In 1978, we actually walked the length and breadth of America in a six-month march. And I was the national coordinator of that march, and involved every Indian tribe and Indian organization in continental United States and the Western Hemisphere. People were coming from Canada and Central, South America, Mexico. They came from everywhere. And I started going into city council meetings in every little city along the way, all the way from California to Washington, D.C. And by the time I got halfway across the country, we addressed all the labor unions, mayors, city councils, ministerial society, and then we started getting invitations to go and speak before the legislators. And so I spoke in every state, from Kansas all the way to Washington, D.C. I was able to go in and address legislators the fact that our way of life was outlawed by the government. Most people didn't know that because they had been through the educational system and were never taught anything about Indian people, about treaty law, the stamping our traditional way of life right into the ground. And they were so embarrassed. By the time we got to Washington, D.C., they actually passed the Indian Religious Freedom Act. We were there in an attempt to destroy 24 bills that were pending before the Congress, the United States of America, to terminate Indian people altogether, try to pay us out for the land and resources we have left, and then exterminate us, get rid of us. And we defeated every single one of those bills. And secondly, of course, we forced the government, we embarrassed them so much, they passed what's called the Indian Religious Freedom Act. Wow. And it was signed into law by Jimmy Carter, I think it was September 20th, 1978. Oh.
Gotcha. Yes, 1 second. I'm so sorry, the Thunder. We actually have a caller. Caller with
hi, Jerry. This is Lori.
Oh, hi, Lori.
Hi. I'm doing well. How you doing?
Not too bad. Did you enjoy that static we had?
Oh, man, that was crazy.
You have a question for Thunder?
Yeah, I was wondering if he would possibly come on Sim again and share his story about when he was about to cross the river.
Well, definitely, I want to talk about that, but that's a subject that's going to probably take an whole hour to even talk about. It's something that most people don't talk about, but I was given permission by the elders to talk about that, because a lot of our people, they've been forced to Christianity and accept the Christian way, even to burials. And we started doing our own Medewan ceremonies today, and the Dakota Nation are doing their own ceremonies. And in Pine Ridge alone, there's 12 churches that have shut down in the past 10 years because nobody's going to church anymore. They're going to Sundances, going to purification ceremonies. And of course, if you're from Minnesota, you'd hear about the big scandal that's going on right now. It reached all the way up to the Archbishop. Some young man that was physically, sexually molested by the Archbishop. It came out today on radio here, and they exposed all these priests. 40 or 50 of them so far they have exposed. Some 2/3 of them are dead, but some of them are still alive. And when a reporter goes to their home and knocks on their door and tries to talk to them, they slam the door, and the reporters say they won't talk to anyone. If any person, you or myself or somebody else, were accused of something like that, and they have proof of it, by the way, they would arrest us immediately and put us in jail and charge us. But so far they've been able to escape from all that, you know. And of course now today the Archbishop put away everything, all his ceremonies. He's not going to be talking to churches or nothing anymore until the sex scandal is cleared up. And so that's kind of what happened. And we of course went back to our traditional way of life. I belong to what's called the Three Fires Society, which is the Madewan way of life. In fact, I'm the Grand Chief of the Ogichida, of the Warrior Society within the Three Fires. And now today all my children, grandchildren, they all have Indian names. They're given by the Creator, their traditional names, and that's happening with hundreds and thousands of our people, especially new babies new children that are coming into the world today. They're all having ceremony, and they're all given Indian names, and so it's really a beautiful journey. And a lot of the wakes and funerals today are all handled by us. We take care of our people and make sure that they go on that journey and they have all the support that they need to go back home, to cross over that river that we talk about. You know, I've been there myself. You know, I was fatally shot, if most of you remember. It was in the newspapers, television, radio, all over the world, not just here in the States, all over the world. And I was shot early in the morning in June of 1973 in the Park Rosebud Reservation. I was shot a little bit before sunup. And I know that I died. The newspapers and television, everybody said that I was dead. And they operated on me. When they operated, they had to cut me completely open, like 2 hours after I was shot. And they said there was so much blood that came out of it, there's no possible way I could have lived. And so I know that I went on that journey. And but I never could cross that river. I saw my father and my sisters and brothers and other relatives that had passed on before me waiting. It was early in the morning. The sun was shining in their face. I was coming from the east, and I was going west. And west is where we go, and when we pass where we go home to be with all our relatives. So I could see them over there, and I wanted to get to them. But for some reason, the fog came across the water and grabbed my knees, and I couldn't go any further. And I started hollering for my dad, and a couple of years, and my sisters, and everybody, they couldn't hear me, and I couldn't get to them, and I really felt bad. And all of a sudden, they all walked away, and you know, and I could feel the pain coming. I come to, and there was blood all over and the grass around me. I was shot at point blank range right below the heart, and the bullet went through my pancreas, and it took them 2.5 hours to find it. And I survived and lived through that experience. And so I saw what it was like, and I tasted that water, and I smelled that clean, fresh air. I've never smelled anything like that yet in my life, and I've never tasted water so fresh that I did that morning. But I came back, and unbelievable the beautiful things that have happened since then. Our job training, our legal services, our housing, our clinics, and our health, and our most important of everything, our sun dances and our traditional way of life. People are practicing that now all the way from the Northwest Territory in Canada all the way down to the southern tip of South America. Even the Mexica movement that's going on in throughout Central Central South America, Mexico, all the way down to the tip of South America. They're saying had it not been for the American Indian movement and how we stood up, they would not have been able to stand up yet themselves. They weren't strong enough. But now we're all standing together. We're all related. And I always tell my relatives from the South that if Columbus landed down there and the conquistadors landed up here, we'd be speaking Spanish and they'd be speaking English. That's the only difference. Other than that, we're all one family. And that's what I talk about. And I travel throughout that whole area, and I meet people at the United Nations from El Salvador, Guatemala, Bolivia, who are all traditional, real people and spiritual leaders, and they all have the same dreams and they have the same vision. That said that during the 5th generation, this is what they said now, during the 5th generation, a generation is like 25 years. So 5 generations is what, 125 years. That's the period after treaty-making time, 125 years. They have these boarding schools, take our language, our culture, remove us from our land. We have diabetes and alcohol would come among us. They build prisons and jail and everything. But they said that during the 5th generation, after treaty-making time, a new people would stand up, and they would come dressed in red. And we didn't know that at the time. You know, we had short hair, and I was the first one to grow my hair long when I started wearing berets. And, of course, you look at all of our shirts and jackets, they're all red, you know, and black. That's our colors. And when we talked to the old people, they said and no matter what tribe it is, when they talk about the prophecy, they said that a new people would stand up and they'd come dressed in red, and they would start practicing their traditional way of life again. In 1971, there was only one Sundance left in America, and that was on Pine Ridge. And it was the BIA had to give a permit, and the Catholic Church ran the whole thing. They weren't allowed to pierce. They weren't allowed to play in their traditional language. They had merry-go-rounds and Ferris wheels around the harbor, rodeo going on. People would come there drunk and everything. And on Sunday, the Catholic priest would come in and serve communion, and that was the end of the Sundance. And I went there. I wanted to go to Sundance all my life, and I finally had the opportunity to go there, and I saw that, witnessed it, and I just made up my mind there that that priest wasn't going to come in there no more. His name was Father Stanley from Holy Rosary. You can ask any of the traditional leaders out there, the Crow Dogs and American Horses and Footscrolls, and ask any of them, Red Claws, and they'll tell you that I was the one that went out there on Sunday when that Catholic priest came in, and I stood in front of him and refused his entrance, and I'm not even from that tribe. People were screaming at me to get out of the harbor. It was like a sacrilege, they said. And I was real gentle about it. I stood in front of the guy and asked him to leave. He asked me who I was, and I told him, he said, I heard about you rabble-rousers, get out of my way. And, of course, he had the crowd guard. They were throwing eggs and hamburgers and sandwiches and pop bottles and cans and everything at me. And he told me, Dad, who are you? And I said, I'm Clyde Bellecourt, American Indian Movement. I heard about you rabble-rousers, get out of my way. And I said, Father, please. See, I'd already talked to the Sundancers, and I asked them to their permission to stop that from happening, and they finally voted in favor of it. The biggest crowd you ever hear. You could hear sirens coming way in the background, police cars coming from all over. And he finally said to me, what are you going to do if I don't leave? He had all these white beaded vestments on. He had 2 little altar boys behind him carrying some bread and some wine. And I said, Father, please, I'm begging you, I'm asking you to leave. He said, what are you going to do if I don't leave? I took one arm, put it over my shoulder, and my friend of mine, Lyman Brightman, took the other arm, and we tiptoed him out of there. And, of course, they loaded us up right away in squad cars and took us to the Rosebud border of the reservation in Pine Ridge. Picked us out in the highway there and told us they never ever want to see me again, either one of us again in Pine Ridge. So the following year we danced at Crow Dogs on the Rosebud, and we pierced for the first time in over 90 years, and I was one of the first people to pierce her. And today there's over 70 sun dances on Pine Ridge alone, something like 50 of them on Rosebud, and all the way from the Northwest Territory of Canada to the southern tip of South America. They are now dancing the sun dance, and the women are dancing the moon dance. I've been to them. I've been invited there. I've went there. So when I Sundance down at Pipestone in the Lakota Nation, people come there. They recognize me as the head Sundance, the one that brought back the Sundance. So this is probably one of the reasons why they wanted to get rid of me. They don't want me around. Because I try to speak the truth and not just speak it, but live it. And what you got to walk the talk. You can't just talk about it. You got to walk it too. And that's what I've attempted to do in my life. And I do it because I have a lot of support, particularly women, elderly people, old people. They're the ones that support this movement, the traditional people that practice these traditional ways. And that's our base. That's our strength. That's what keeps us going today.
Wow. Yeah, I want to say Chimmy Gwitch to you, Clyde, and just keep on going, because you've done so much, and I'm so honored to have been able to talk to you.
Well, thank you very much. We have our Sundance this year. We're going to have our camping down at Pipestone. We're going to start camping on the 2nd of July. And that'll last from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. On Wednesday, I think it's the 9th, we'll have our tree day. So we put our sacred tree up, and then we'll start dancing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, right into the full moon. And if you come there, you'll be able to quarry the pipestone with us and make your own pipes. And we invite everybody to come down. Last year we had a buffalo dance there. A buffalo dance came down from Canada, a bunch of dancers. They dressed just like buffalo. Very sacred dance. So all these things are coming back. The healing and the medicine is coming back to our people. And hundreds and thousands of our people are got away from the alcohol and the drugs and all this stuff that's being brought into our communities. They're enjoying this way of life.
Wow. Unbelievable. Well, I tell you, Clyde, Thunder, I'm so sorry. We do have to call it a night already. And I'm sorry for the static going off like it did. That was unbelievable.
I'm glad to hear that there's that many people tuning in, and I hope that we can come back and we can talk about a lot of things that are going on. And I would like to talk a lot about what we have to do today.
Oh yeah,
you can't have a dream or a vision or a prophecy unless you make it happen. That's
true.
the way I've been told. You can talk all you want, but you got to make it happen. The Creator, you do 90% of the work, and the Creator will take care of the rest of it.
That's true. That is really true. Well, thank you so much. We got to have you back on again. I'm gonna, if it's okay, in about after the new year, I'm gonna get in touch with you and Dave and get you back on. Is that cool?
Let me give you a little 1-minute commercial here.
Sure.
I celebrate for the last 25 years. I started what is called On the Red Road New Year Celebration of Sobriety. I've been doing that for 25 years. And what do we do it for is want to provide a good, clean, safe, alcohol-free environment where our young people in our community can come in and celebrate the New Year in a traditional way of life. So New Year's Eve at the Minneapolis American Indian Center right on Bloomington and Franklin, we're going to have a celebration of sobriety powwow. We're going to break 10:30 that night, and we're going to bring in the hand drums, and we're going to round dance the New Year in. And there'll be 2 more grand entries on New Year's Day. And I'd like to invite all of our listeners out there to come down and join us. We start on the 31st, which is New Year's Eve. Grand entry will be at 7 o'clock that evening. And come on down and join us, help them down and join us and enjoy this celebration of sobriety. There's over close to 400 of them now going on all over America and Canada, but it started right here in Minneapolis. So hundreds and thousands of our people are celebrating sobriety today. That's one of the biggest moves we ever made.
Well, awesome. I know that I am definitely going to be there, and I know my wife is going to love to be there. And Dave, you're going to be driving right with us, right?
We do it for the children.
Down there. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun, and like Uncle Clyde said, that it's a sobriety thing. There are
What was that, Dave? I so appreciate you being with, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Para X, for having us on, and sorry about the little static cling there, but you know how it is in the wintertime. It kind of happens. And David Andrews, thank you so much for co-hosting, all you listeners. And this is another edition of MPC Radio. Thank you all very much. Good night.
Good night.